What's it? What'd you say to me? What'd you fucking say to me? This sounds like fucking fight talk to me. This sounds like fucking fight talk to me. Huh? That sounds like fight talk to me.
Fight Talk with Bill.
Kia ora koutou guys, and welcome to the latest episode of Fight Talk with Bill. Today we're going to be talking UFC 293, returning to my adopted hometown of Sydney, Australia. But before we look forward, we're going to look backwards and recap what's been happening since the last time we caught up. That starts off with UFC 292, where Sean O'Malley shocked the world with a second round TKO over Aljamain Sterling, establishing himself as the UFC's next big superstar. Zhang Weili retained her strawweight belt over a very tough Amanda Lemos, and Ian Gary kicked the shit out of Neil Magny for 3 rounds and absolutely tortured him. To be honest, before this fight, I was a little bit on the fence about Magny. I liked his fighting style, but I thought the whole McGregor impressions were pretty cringe. But after disrespecting Magny before, during, and after this fight, he really won a fan out of me that day. Also notable wins on that card were Marlon Chito Vera's win over Pedro Munoz, springing himself into title contention, and we also had Chris Weidman return from 3 years after his leg break to break his leg again. The following weekend, we saw the Korean Zombie go out in his shield with a third round TKO loss to Max Holloway. And then this weekend, we had Cyril Bongaman take on Sergey Spivak, where he absolutely gave him the old dadoosh to see himself get back into form after his humiliating loss to John Jones. Alright guys, with all that recap out of the way, let's move on to this weekend's card. A bit of a lighter offering, but to be honest, I'm just stoked to get seats. I did, however, get nosebleed seats, so I reached out to the big man himself to see if I could get myself a better spot, hoping to hear back from him soon. Despite the light offering though, heaps and heaps of Kiwis on this card, which is great. Speaking of Kiwis, let's move on to the headlining event with our favourite Kiwi/Nigerian/Chinaman, Israel the Last Stylebender Adesanya, as he takes on Sean Tarzan Strickland. Plenty of beef and grudge between these guys. They've been trading barbs for years, which makes it an interesting fight, as I love it when they do have genuine hate each other, which I think these guys do. Sean Strickland started as a $4.40 underdog, and that line has moved all the way to $5.75. I don't think a lot of people see him having a path to victory. His usual path is as a volume striker, pretty much accumulating damage, either winning through points or just gassing them out alone. He's done years and years and hours of sparring, which make him quite an effective MMA striker. But I think that is actually his issue, is he still feels too safe staying just in range, and then when he fights genuine elite level strikers like Pereira or Adesanya, I think that falls down, as these guys, unlike other high level MMA strikers, set traps, make reads. So I think I'm going to be going for Israel by TKO or by points. Israel's currently paying to win by points at $2.35 or $2.18 by KO, or you can get the two of them paired up for $1.15. Yeah, so you may as well just take the money line on that one. Rolling on to the co-main event, we have West Sydney's own Tai Tuivasa taking on Alexander Volkov. Whilst Bam Bam is coming off a 2-fight losing streak, this was preceded by a very, very impressive 5-fight KO streak. Should also be noted that Tai's most recent losses were to Sergey Pavlovich and Cyril Gane, both top of the division, so I wouldn't say he's slowing down yet. What stands out to me the most about this fight is the height difference, with Tai coming in at 6'2" to Volkov 6'7". Although Tai in the past has had no trouble finding the chin of taller opponents, but it must be noted that Volkov is a lot better at using that range than Stefan Struve. Volkov himself is a big finisher with 11 KOs on his record so far. He knows how to use the range. He knows how to use the pressure. He does, however, tend to leave his hands pretty low when he's got his opponent hurt, which could leave him vulnerable to Tai countering once hurt. Tai is very, very well known for looking pretty hurt and then coming back with a wild KO shot out of nowhere, as we can see here against Greg Hardy. However, in the end, I think the Russian is just going to be a bit too much for Tai. I don't know why he's taking such tough competition, but I don't know how I'd feel about betting against Tai Tuivasa, so I'm going to take him for a round 1 KO for 650 or by KO at 360. Next up on the main card, we have Manel Kape taking on Felipe dos Santos. This was originally supposed to be against Kai Kara-France, but he had to pull out due to injury, but shot to Manel Kape for revving up that fight and actually make it interesting for everyone. Next on, we have Justin Tafa taking on Austin Lane in a rematch after their last fight a few weeks ago ended unceremoniously with an eye poke. Austin Lane's another ex-NFL turned MMA fighter. Very, very athletic, but he's fairly unrefined, and I think he's going to leave himself open for the KO. So I'm going to take Justin Tafa by KO for $1.61. Moving on, we've got Tyson Pedro, another West Sydney local, taking on Anton the Pleasure Man Tarakhis. Pedro's had a pretty up and down career in the UFC, a lot of time off, one time 3 years at a time due to injuries, but he's back now, coming off a loss, yes, but he's a very exciting fighter, some of the heaviest leg kicks I've ever seen. His opponent, the Pleasure Man, was undefeated before arriving in the UFC and has gone 0-2 since. So this one's a pick'em with them having fairly even odds with Pedro at 196 to Anton at 188. But I'm going to ride with Pedro, one, because he's a hometown boy, and two, because I think he's actually got wins in the UFC and he's got more experience against high-level fighters. Moving on to the top of the prelims, we got another City Kickboxing, Carlos Ulberg taking on Tawoon Zhang. Just make sure you keep your misses away whilst Ulberg is on the screen. Also on the prelims, we have, who else have we got? Jack Jenkins, lightweight mainstay Jamie Malarkey, also an Australian. We've also got Mike Mathia, he's called Mike Diamond here for some reason, better known by his ring name Blood Diamond. He's another City Kickboxing guy. I've heard a lot of the guys from there talking about him. He's got very exciting, lots of crazy kicks. It's actually who Volk brought in to train against Yair Rodriguez. So he hasn't won in the UFC yet, but hoping to get one there. We've also got Shane Young. He hasn't been doing too well as of late, but he always goes out to be kill or be killed and will likely be going out on his shield. Right, that's about all for this weekend's event, but let's move on to what's coming up. We've got Alexa Grasso rematching Valentina Shevchenko for the flyweight title bout. And more importantly on that card, we have Kevin Holland taking on Jack Della Maddalena. That should be a barn burner. Pushing forward to the weekend ahead, we've got Rafael Fiziev taking on Matisse Gamrot. And that's all I've got for you today. We will be catching up next time for, dare I say it, UFC 294 Islam Makhachev Charles Oliveira 2. I haven't even started emotionally preparing for this one yet, but I'm going to have to get there soon. Thanks for tuning in, guys. When you're watching this weekend, keep an eye out for me there in the stand. I'll be there in the Warriors jersey, yelling at anything that moves. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Fight Talk with Bill. I'll see you this weekend. Let's go!